Hey, what's going on, guys? This is BunnyMuffins. We have the tier list for patch 11.20. This is kind of like the spicy patch. They added double the radiant items, so you now get 2 of them instead of 1. And they also made a lot of the super fun stuff quite interesting. If you guys want to see the full thing, check out the patch review that I did. I'll leave a card up here in case you guys are curious. But going right into the tier list, because I don't want to waste anyone's time, we have in the S tier, we have by far like 2 comps that were played so much more than everything else. Here's a picture of approximately how frequently each of the top players are going for some of the comps here. And in the S tier, we have Abominations with Vel'Koz, Heimerdinger, Zyra. I will say that Heimerdinger is a little more popular than everything else because he is easier to get now from like a golden draconic egg, for example. And then after that, we have Aphelios. A lot of things to keep in mind is that in this patch, a lot of the winning boards, they are a lot stronger than they were previously. The reason why is because we get a lot more gold now from the Radiant Blessing. People are reaching their late games a lot stronger. So a lot of like the strong mid-game compositions, we're thinking like Draven, we're thinking like Lucian, they are going to get a little outshined by the super late game comps such as like Heimer 2-star. So that's why Aphelios is so good. You could play Akshan. He uses the same exact items as Aphelios, so if you get Akshan 2 because you have like infinitely more gold than you did before, you just play him, sell the Aphelios, swap all the items onto him, find a new Aphelios, and then you have like 2 solid carries at that. Same thing with Sentinels. Sentinels can do the same thing, but they're in the A tier because Lucian and Akshan use different items, so you can't have that smooth of a transition. After that, we have Cavalier Cannoneers. This is like the reroll comp right now. Again, because we have more gold, that means all the 1 cost and 2 cost rerolls are not going to be as strong as like a 3 cost reroll. 3 cost rerolls are a lot better because they're going to make better use of that Nico. They're going to make better use of all the extra gold we're getting from the Radiant Blessing. So like Cavalier, Cannoneer, and Yasuo, they are definitely high up there right now. After that, we have Skirmishers. Skirmisher, Jack's got a couple buffs, so he's interesting to play. And keep in mind, guys, we'll be going over how to play every single one of these comps after we do the first overview. After that, we have Invokers and Dawnbringer Karma. These two are kind of like the same comp. Karma is like the mid-game version. The Invokers is a late-game version. Draven, really solid. He did get a buff, but again, for reasons I stated before, he doesn't really have that like secondary carry that's as strong as like an Akshan in the super late game. So even though he got buffed, he is not as strong as the other comps. After that, Nightbringer Yasuo, nothing to say there. Solid comp overall, one of the better reroll ones. B tier, we have Dawnbringer reroll. That's with Kha'Zix, Vayne reroll, Assassins. Assassins are a 3 cost comp similar to Cavaliers and the Yasuo build. However, you need a lot more to make this build work. You need like a spatula as well. So yeah, Assassins are a little trickier than the other 2 reroll comps. Kayle Knights is after that. Reroll Legionnaire, pretty solid. I've been playing this a bunch. It's really fun to do, but it's not that good. It's only good for like top 4ing. Varus reroll, solid. Helions kind of got destroyed a bit. Like, Kled is just not the same anymore. And Tristana, she's okay, but she's not as good as the old Kled. So I would shy away from like a lot of the B tiers this week because I feel like the S and A tiers are just like a lot more solid than the B tiers. But of course, if you get infinite Vaynes in the beginning of the game, like go ahead and go for Vayne reroll, for example. C tier is Riven and Vel'Koz. They're just like a lot weaker than all the other comps. Vel'Koz is used more in the Abominations, which are in S tier, just don't do the Redeemed version. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into how to play every other comp. In case you guys missed the patch preview, I'll leave a link up here in case you guys want to check that out. And also, I am doing a giveaway on that video and on my Twitter, so definitely go check those 2 out for instructions on entering, because I'll be giving away 400 Little Legend Eggs total and 200 on each giveaway. So Abominations, nothing has really changed about the comp. It's the same comp. You want Shojin, you want Jeweled Gauntlet, and then you want like a healing item such as Hand of Justice or Hextech Gunblade. After that, you want to transition slowly into the Heimerdinger comp or cap out at the Vel'Koz board if you are like running low HP or don't have that much gold back game. Pretty easy to play. We've been playing this comp for a while now. Well, I personally have not because I just play all the other comps such as Aphelios, but if you've been playing Abominations before, like keep doing exactly what you're doing because nothing about the comp has changed. It's still really, really strong. After that, we have Aphelios. This is a comp I do play a lot. Lots of different builds. I find that this one is the best one right now because Aphelios with Invokers is super, super strong. That's why I have the Teemo in instead of the 4 Nightbringers. Don't get me wrong, Nightbringers are good in the mid game and early game, and sometimes I even go like 6 Nightbringers in like stage 4. However, in the super late game, because everyone is making it there right now, you want this super expensive comp. We got 4 costs, 3 legendaries, and then a Lulu. Teemo and Ivern give you the Invokers, and that gives a lot more mana to your Aphelios, which just makes him cast a lot more often. And when his ability is like a huge AoE, essentially, like it is really, really welcome. Akshan 2 uses the same items as Aphelios, and as I said before, a lot of the winning boards, they all have like Akshan 2s. And what you want to do is once you get it, sell your Aphelios, swap all the items onto Akshan, and like have a blast from there. One thing I found really helpful this patch particularly is the item remover, because it allows you to do this swap really, really easily. So if you are going for this comp, do save the item remover for that if you happen to get it that game. Next build we have is the A tier, so Sentinels. Lucian, same thing, it's just 6 Sentinels. Roll down a bit at 4-1 at level 7. That's generally when I find like the spike of Sentinels to be at its strongest. And then after that, you slowly go to 8 later on, and then hopefully if you are still alive, go for 9 or go for like some 3-star randomly. Another win condition you have is the Akshan 2. You just need to find items for him, and that can be hard to do because all the Aphelios players, they're going to be looking for your Akshans as well. Next build we have is the Cavalier Cannoneer build. This is just like simple reroll. Hecarim, you just build like 2 tank items plus one of the offensive tank items. This could be Sunfire Cape, this could be Ionic Spark, it could be even like a Titan's Resolve, things of those nature. And then after that, Misfortune, Spirit Shojin, probably required. I feel like that's the best item on her. And then Jeweled Gauntlet is the best damage item. Third item, it could be whatever you want. Sometimes I like to greed the second Radiant item on stage 5-1 to try to like luck out on an item on my carry. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. If you are winning tremendously and you have high health, like you can afford to do that more often. But if you are low health, you obviously need to just slam whatever third item you can on Misfortune. This build, you could go 4 Forgotten like I have here. I've seen some people do 6 Forgotten. I've seen some people do like 3 or 2 Cavalier. You can have a lot of flexibility with this comp. It just depends what you hit on the rerolls. After that, we have Skirmisher Knights. This is the comp that got buffed a lot. Jax uses like 4 or 5 items really effectively. They're essentially the same as a Kled item. So you want like Last Whisper, Infinity Edge, Runons, Bloodthirster, all that is going to be fine and dandy. Viego is very good with like a Frozen Heart. Personally, my favorite item combo on Viego is the Radiant Frozen Heart, because then he jumps to the backline and then casts immediately. Really fun stuff to do. Obviously, you want the 3 Ironclad because you're already playing Jax as your primary carry. And then 4 Knights, pretty solid. You could also go 6 Skirm. I've seen that done a little bit, but mostly I've seen 3 Skirmisher. Next build we have is the Invoker build. So I'll go over this build and the Dawnbringer Karma because they're kind of one and the same. Essentially, you want ability power. You also want mana items. So Heimerdinger likes Spirit Shojin, Teemo likes blue buff. Karma can use either or, but she prefers blue buff a little more. Trap Claw is really good in both comps because it protects your main carry. Frontline's going to be Garen, Volibear, and the Invokers, of course. Like 4 Invoker is just really good for these types of builds because you're so reliant on the cast, so you need to get as much mana as possible, and just playing 4 Invoker allows you to do just that. Let's move on to the next build. We have Forgotten Draven. Again, this build got buffed because Draven got buffed. Props to the developers because they recognized that he needed a buff if they are going to add a lot more gold to the game, and I personally didn't foresee that, so good on them. But it's also their job to do that, but I'm just a guy playing a video game. So 2 builds I like for Draven is the Forgotten version, which you see up here, and the Legionnaire version, which you see down here. Both are fine. Like, people also like to front row Draven. That's fine too. Again, I explained this in my last meta snapshot. If you are lazy, do not frontline Draven. If you're scouting every turn, frontline your Draven. The reason why is because if you get like a lot of dangerous units in front of him, he might just die really, really quickly. But if you have like a Guardian Angel, you can frontline him and not worry as much. But like for me, I don't scout that much because I'm too lazy to when I'm playing TFT. You probably want a 2nd row or even 3rd row your Draven. But like if I am super try-harding, like I probably would put him in the front row. Just like a disclaimer out there. You may notice an itemization difference. I explained this last week. If you have a lot of attack damage items such as like Deathblade, Infinity Edge, things of that nature, the Legionnaire build is going to be slightly better because Legionnaire gives a lot of attack speed. If you have a lot of attack speed items such as Rageblade or Giant Slayer, which I have listed out here, Forgotten version is going to be good because Forgotten gives you attack damage. The reason why you want to mix of both is because of damage multipliers. So if you go too far into one stat of damage, it's not going to multiply, it's just going to add. Whereas if you get an even mix of like 3 types of damage amplifiers or ways to deal damage, they multiply with each other. So that's why getting a mix of each is good, which is why you want to complement your synergies with your items. After that, we are going to go over the Nightbringer Yasuo build. This one's just like a reroll build. Just keep in mind, there are a lot of different builds for Yasuo. So there's the attack speed build, which you see here. You have Rapid Fire Cannon and Runon's Hurricane. And then there are also the caster builds, where you go like Blue Buff and Archangel Staff. Preferably with Radiant Blue Buff, because Radiant Blue Buff is absolutely nuts on Yasuo. People also like putting Cavalier Spat on him. People also like putting like Jeweled Gauntlet if they're going like the crit builds or something like that. But generally, like, Handed Justice is probably the most flexible item, along with Runon's Hurricane, just because they kind of fit both builds. But sometimes you could kind of like restart from the beginning if you have like a Radiant Blue Buff, for example, and go like the Archangel's route. Next build we have are the B tiers. So keep in mind, like I said in the beginning of the video, the S and A tiers, they are going to be the kings of this patch, at least so far. Things could change next week, so when I update you guys next Friday, and I release this meta snapshot every single Friday, subscribe if you are interested in that type of content, because you will get notifications whenever they are posted. So for B tiers, I've been saying that they're pretty good so far in this set, but this is like the first patch where they are like considerably weaker than all the S and A tier builds, unless you get like amazing starts for them. So you'll notice a lot of these are like your reroll builds, like Dawnbringer, Reroll, Kha'Zix Gragas, high risk, high reward. Getting Kha'Zix items is really nice because you do have the double Radiant armory, and this comp uses a ton of items because you could put your utility items on Pyke, you could put 2 sets of tank items on both Gragas and Garen, and you could also put items on Karma or Teemos. So if you're getting a lot of items, you want a comp that can have a lot of different item holders, and this is one of those comps. So this is why out of all the 1-cost reroll comps, I feel like people are playing this the most and having the best results with it for the reasons I stated before. Next comp we'll go over is Vayne reroll. So for example, in this comp, you can really only itemize Hecarim, Vayne, and Rel. The rest are just all support items, but anyone can use support items, you know? Because Viego at 1-star, like a Frozen Heart's great on him, but unless you get him 2-star, ability power doesn't really mean that much. Rel is just like a random tank, but she doesn't really carry like how Garen does. You don't have like someone like Karma or Teemo to add to this build. So you really only have one guy, or like Vayne is a girl in this case, who can actually hold all your offensive items, which is why this is ranked slightly lower. Still in the B tier for both of them, but you know how it is with reroll, you can't play it that often. For both of these, since they're 1-cost rerolls, you'll want to slow roll at level 5. I go over that in the how to play section, and then sometimes you want a 2-star Hecarim, and then you want to slow roll on level 6 for that. Next build we have is the Assassin build. I tend not to play this ever because you need like a lot of Nocturnes. Nocturne 1 and 2 kind of suck. They did buff it a little bit, but it's still not enough. You need Revenant to make him really work in the early to mid game, and Revenant's hard to get because they're all 4 and 5 costs. You need Assassin Spatula, a lot of different things you need to go your way to make this comp work, which is typically why I try to avoid doing it. But if you do want to play this, slow roll at level 7 for Nocturne 3-star, because that is going to give you a high chance of completing him with like a lot of gold. And yeah, attack damage items and attack speed is going to be great. IE is really good on him. Like pretty much any of the typically good attack damage items will work on Nocturne. Next up, we have Kayle Knights. This is a weird build because like we do get a lot more gold, and that typically helps people hit 2-star legendaries. The one weird thing about Kayle is that Kayle 1-star and Kayle 2-star, there isn't like that big of a difference between them because they either get to the Ascension or they don't. What the extra gold does help with, however, is maybe hitting your first Kayle. So sometimes you just need that first Kayle, and getting extra gold from like the Radiant Blessing really does help with that. But again, like similar to the Vayne build, there aren't too many item holders. It's really just Garen, maybe Galio, and Kayle who are holding all the items, which sometimes you get too many of them and you can't really do anything after that. But it's still a solid build. If you hit the Kayle and you have like a Knight kind of early to mid game opener, it could work. After that, reroll Legionnaire. I've been playing this comp a bunch. I just force it if I get like a 2-star Kalista with like at least 1 Aatrox in the early game. It's not that great. You get like top 4 almost guaranteed if you go for it, but like there are a lot of other different builds you probably should be playing with those items instead. For example, Kalista uses the same items as Aphelios, so why not just go for that? But if you like 1-cost rerolls, I found that this one works pretty well. After that, we have Reroll Redeemed, and this build's, I used to love it, but It's just really weak right now. I don't recommend playing this at all because Varus is just in a very awkward spot right now. But if you do really want to play it, this is how I set it up. And you kind of like roll for 1 cost, a little bit for Leona, and then go on to Varus afterwards. You could also skip Leona if you don't find too many copies of her and just only reroll for Varus. Both works, it just depends on how many Leonas you get in your game. After that, we have the Hellion build. Personally, I've lost a lot of LP trying to play Kled. I don't recommend anyone playing this because it just feels really weak. Like, you're gonna be lose streaking the entire early game if you force this comp. However, once you hit Kled 3, you don't like spike as hard as you did before, so you end up just dying. The build I have up here is a little outdated. You definitely want like a Frozen Heart on your Cannon. I thought I updated this last week, but apparently it didn't go through. And then in the second build, Tristana, like, she's better than Kled, but only very slightly. I don't think she's at like that spot where you're like, oh, I really want to go for this Hellion reroll build. I'm not really too sure what they can do to fix that, but yeah, let me know how your guys' experience has been with this comp. And yeah, this is why you don't only play one comp during a patch, because once a new patch comes out, you kind of forgot how to play the game. Next builds we have is Riven carry. This build did win the World Championship in the final game, and kind of weird how it's in C tier, but in that game, they had like 2 Legionnaire spatulas, which really helped them. So they went like 8 Legionnaire or something like that to win the game. But you don't get that often. You don't get 2 Legionnaire spatulas in the average game. So I guess only go for these 2 builds if you are like forced to, essentially. Not to say they can't win, but like, yeah, it's just very rare for it to happen. As for items, don't look at this thing below. The set's ending soon, so I'm too lazy to update it, honestly. It's not because I'm lazy, it's because I also lost the original Photoshop file that I had for all these items, and I'm like building out every single one of these items. I'm just gonna wait till next set because they're probably gonna change a bunch of items before that. So Carousel item priority, I am going to, like, I don't really think your starting item matters that much, because I've lost like a lot of carousels recently, and I feel like I'm able to play the game with any of these items, at least for me. So you just take whatever item for whichever comps you go for. If you like attack damage comps, definitely go for the sword. If you like ability power, you could even go for a rod, even though I rank it lowly. If you want to stay flexible, belt, glove, chain vest, all really solid options. Even Negatron cloak isn't the end of the world because you could build Runons or like a tank item. What I've been doing, because the armories have changed and you have an extra item now, I like going for win streak items in the early game and then utility items right after that. So I build like maybe 1 or 2 items that are good for the early game, and then after that I focus on my utility items, and then I try to get like as many radiant damage items as possible. The only bad part is that you can't do that every game, because some games you just don't get enough offensive items, and like sometimes the radiant armories don't show you any offensive items too. So you gotta be careful. You always want a balance of items. And I've been saying this for like years now. Just always balance out your items. If you have a lot of tank items, go for a offensive item. If you have a lot of offensive items, go for a tank item. If you have too many of both of those, maybe go for some utility items as well. That way you don't get screwed on the 5-1 radiant armory or on the 5-2 like regular armory that pops up sometimes. But yeah, just to sum up, that is it for the items and the comps. But like Abomination and Aphelios, those are going to be your bread and butter. After that, Sentinels, solid. Like everything in the A tier, solid. If you want reroll, do the Cavalier build. Avoid B and below. I mean, play whatever you want. It is a free world. But yeah, try to stick to S and A tiers if you want to like, if you want like an easy time to maximize your chances of placing highly, because they're just really good, especially Action. Action's probably like super broken this patch, like probably one of the strongest units. But yeah, definitely check out the Little Legends eggs giveaway that I'm doing on my Twitter at twitter.com/BunnyMuffinsLOL. And also I'm doing 200 more eggs on the previous video going over the patch for this week. And I'll leave a link here, but definitely go check that out if you are interested in the giveaway or if you want more information on this current patch. But that's going to be it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll see you all later. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And of course, smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.